Welcome, welcome everyone. My name is Andres Quintanilla. I'm a research analyst here at the Institute for Higher Education Policy. I want to thank you all for joining us today for our preview of the degree mining tool. The Institute for Higher Education Policy is very excited to debut this new tool that we think is going to help institutions really improve their degree audit processes. You'll hear us refer to the degree audit process itself as degree mining. We think that the work involved when digging through student data to find valuable information, such as degrees, is very valuable. So we refer to that as degree mining. Today, we'll discuss the background of our tool, why we felt it was important for us to develop this, and how it came to be. Joining me for today's presentation is Leanne Davis. She's the Associate Director for Research and Policy. Leanne handles projects and research focused on post-secondary completion, including IHEP's Degrees When Due initiative, which we'll talk a little bit about today. That's a nationwide project to re-engage adult learners and promote degree reclamation efforts. She'll share some of the work we've done through Degrees When Due, including what led to the development of our tool. We'll also hear today from our colleague, Steve Popple. Steve works out of the Office of Knowledge Management at Gateway Community College in Kentucky. He'll share his institution's experience with adopting a new degree mining process and how it helps streamline their process to identify certificates at their institution. And finally, we'll have a preview and demonstration from Bucky Dodd. He's the Assistant Vice President for Education Strategy and Innovation and the Chief Learning Innovation Officer at LX Studios out of the University of Central Oklahoma. Again, he'll walk us through our degree mining tool. Today's webinar is being recorded, so you'll have the recording available for those that were able to register. We'll also share this out via a newsletter. If you have any questions during today's presentations, we're going to stop at a few points throughout today. Please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. You can answer your questions at the bottom, clicking Q&A, and we'll address those questions at those appropriate times. Without further ado, I'm going to hand this over now to Leanne to get us started. I just went over the agenda, but Leanne, you can do that as well.
Thanks, Andres, and thanks to everyone who made time to join us today. As Andres mentioned, we're going to chat just a little bit to give some background on what Degrees When Due is and how degree mining plays a pivotal role in helping to identify and even to re-engage students who have stopped out. We will speak to developing a degree mining strategy, and Steve Popple is going to share some expertise with us and share his experience that really contributed greatly to the development of our tool. Bucky will give a demo of our degree mining tool, and then we'll definitely leave some time at the end for a Q&A. So, this degree mining tool really arose out of our work with Degrees When Due. And for some of you who may not have heard of this, Degrees When Due is our equity-based completion initiative that's designed to increase degree attainment among the population of adults with some college and no degree. Through Degrees When Due, we promote evidence-based strategies to help build expertise, capacity, and infrastructure on campuses that are committed to helping more near completer students across the completion finish line. Next. To date, we've had over 190 campuses participate in Degrees When Due from 23 different states and systems. 59 of those, just a little over a quarter, are minority serving institutions. And we're really excited as our third and final cohort is kind of moving through the final stages of implementation. We're going to have some numbers to be able to share really soon about how many students we've identified through this initiative as near completers, how many degrees we've been able to award to students who had already earned a degree, but that degree was never awarded, and also the number of students who were contacted and re-engaged and re-enrolled to complete their post-secondary education. Next. Through Degrees When Due, we have we help institutions implement these evidence-based reverse transfer and adult re-engagement strategies that are going to ultimately help more students across the completion finish line and to complete a degree or credential. We do this through a number of ways. We provide coaches that work directly with our institutions and with the state systems. We really help institutions understand how to use their data to identify students, to re-engage students, but also to identify policy and practice barriers. So what are academic and non-academic barriers that might be reasons that some very particular populations of students may have in common, and how can institutions then use that data as evidence to support policy and practice changes? We'll come back to that. um, data and using disaggregated data is really at the heart of what we're doing in Degrees When Due. It's important to help institutions be able to build a strong case for support to their leadership and communities to help raise awareness around the number of stopped out students. The Degrees When Due process of analyzing student level data can often uncover these policy and practice barriers to student success. And through Degrees When Due, we help our institutions understand how to use their data to tell a compelling story about why this work matters and what difference they're able to make in the lives of their students. And ultimately, we really want to demonstrate how degree reclamation can be an effective strategy to close equity gaps and increase degree attainment for some college no degree students, but also to move the needle on attainment in our campuses and our states and in our country overall. But in order to do this, institutions need to have sound data management practices, and they need to have technology systems that are able to help them through this process. Otherwise, it's an overwhelming, enormous amount of work on pen and paper involved in really not an efficient way to identify students and to award credentials. So why don't we go to the next slide? So through Degrees When Due, we learned that many of the institutions we work with were really kind of struggling with what we say inefficient and inequitable degree auditing processes. This is really because institutions may have the technology, but they haven't been able to have maybe they haven't had the funding to update the technology, and kind of the degree auditing module that they use might have been outdated. We also learned that cost was a barrier. And we know so many institutions, everyone has a student information system. There's a way they house their data and they track student records. But in order to be able to have those premium, Cadillac versions of the degree auditing modules that are like plug and play, or we'll do all the work for you, we'll store the what if analyses, cost a lot of money, and that's actually priced many institutions out of being able to upgrade the technology that they use. So once we learned this was a problem, and this was a barrier for institutions who may have identified that they had thousands of near completer students who were within reach of crossing the finish line, but they didn't have the technology system or the technological capacity to efficiently and effectively audit those students' transcripts to figure out who had already earned a credential that wasn't awarded, or how close those students might be on their original degree pathway or on a different degree pathway, so that they could use that in re-enrollment. And so institutions were starting to just slice and dice the data to get down to these smaller numbers that were more manageable for their degree auditing purposes. But what happens to all of those students who are near completers, or who may have even already earned a credential that wasn't awarded, that just don't know about it because of these technological barriers? So we conducted a needs assessment We completed some focus groups. We interviewed many of the institutions that we work with, sent out surveys. And this is what we found is that the common barriers to degree auditing. Again, many of this was the age of the software. It just necessitated upgrades in the overall packaging or in specific modules in order to run audits. There were software implementation challenges that might have been due to a lack of resources. Personnel turnover was certainly an issue. Knowledge was lost. If there was one person on the campus who knew how to do everything and that person retired, oftentimes that knowledge left along with that person. Inadequate or inconsistent data management practices. And this is foundational to be able to implement any of these strategies. And we also found there were challenges with batch auditing. So being able to simultaneously audit multiple transcripts against a degree pathway. Next. So ultimately what we learned through all these focus groups and interviews was that institutions had a desire to optimize rather than replace solutions to identify and award earned credentials. So they didn't need a new technology, but they needed a tool that would help leverage their existing technology. So we created the degree mining tool with two goals in mind: to help increase the number of degrees and certificates awarded, and to guide institutions in implementing more proactive and efficient degree mining practices. Next. And so Andres touched at this at the beginning, but we switch back and forth between auditing and mining. We also know that degree auditing also carries a lot of maybe negative associations with the term. So we wanted to reframe this and talk about degree mining, which really reinforces the idea that institutions already have many of the resources they need. There are existing unawarded credentials within their student data. And if they take the effort to mine for them, it will yield something valuable, both for the institutions and the students. So this is the homepage for IHEP's free degree mining tool, which is available on our Degrees When Due website. Through this, we offer a set of action-ready strategies that institutions can immediately put to work to identify credentials that students have earned but have not yet awarded. So the tool provides these step-by-step, easy to understand instructions that walk the users through the customized steps and technical resources that are going to be right for them and for their student information system. Bucky will show you a preview of this in just a short time, and he'll walk through what some of these strategies are, some of the resources available, such as the short explainer videos or the downloadable templates, so you can take a look. But as I mentioned, we right now have 6 strategies in the degree mining tool. And so there's this, we worked with our working group members and other institutions throughout the US that had already created some homegrown or workaround solutions to how to more efficiently use their student information system and available technological resources to kind of automate parts of this degree mining process. So we have a set of strategies around data management, which really just helps with general data entry and data validation skills. This is something that's foundational for all credential types. We have an example that uses pivot tables. So this has, someone who knows how to use basic spreadsheets and has basic data analysis skills and has access to simple basic spreadsheet software. We provide the instructions on how to use this to identify and award kind of more simple certificates. Another example is using business intelligence tools. And so often many institutions have access to these business intelligence platform. And so we provide the examples on how to use this to identify and award these credentials within structured certificates or associate's degree programs. we heard from many of our institutions that they wanted to understand how to set up an auto awarding system or how to automate this. So we provide that as well. There's a custom template if you want to really explore the resources at your institution and create something new that you can share with us or with the community. And then for those, we do have some institutions that are really working on how to use machine learning to help in the degree mining process. And so this is great for, associate's degrees or bachelor's degrees that have complex options. And someone with more advanced data science skills or platform development skills. And this will help you kind of get to the point where maybe you're able to get about 80% of the way there using machine learning, and then maybe you finish the rest of the degree auditing manually. So with that, I'm really, really excited to turn this over to Steve Popple from Gateway Community and Technical College. Steve was integral in helping us to design part of the degree mining tool and was really an inspiration for us understanding how to use business intelligence tools. So Steve, without further ado, thank you for being here and take it away.
Thank you for your kind and gracious introduction, Leanne. As Andreas mentioned, I'm Steve Popple, and I'm with Gateway Community and Technical College in Kentucky. Gateway is located in the Kentucky portion of the greater Cincinnati area, so that you have a sense of where Gateway is on the map. Gateway's fall enrollment is in the mid to upper 4,000 students, spring enrollment, high 3,000s, low 4,000 students. Gateway has associate in arts and associate in science degree or program options, but also 25 or more technical programs in which students can earn a degree and certificates within most of those programs. So Andreas, next slide, please. So the basic goal of Gateway's embedded certificate process is to award program certificates to students as they have successfully completed those academic work requirements to earn those certificates. Most of our students are degree seeking, but the way most of our technical programs are organized by way of class schedule is that students have the chance to, within a semester or over the course of 2 semesters over the course of their degree study, complete requirements needed for certificates within their particular program. An example of that is the automotive technology program. As students progress through that program to earn a degree, each semester they're completing class requirements in 2 8-week terms that allow those students to be awarded automotive technology certificates that contribute to that degree. Next slide, please. So one of the things that awarding these embedded certificates does is allows us to recognize student academic achievement while they're pursuing a longer course of study and degree towards their diploma. It's a way of really reinforcing and celebrating student success in the medium range, even though their longer term goal is to be with Gateway longer than the certificate that they're receiving. Allows us to recognize, as Leanne mentioned, academic efforts of students that may have stopped out of Gateway. It allows us to reach out to those students and say, you were here with Gateway for a short period, for a period of time. Your academic work did mean something, and here's a tangible evidence of how you have succeeded at Gateway, and inviting those students back so that they can complete a degree or diploma in their respective program. The embedded certificate process also helps relieve the workload of students, program faculty in the registrar's office. Prior to using an embedded certificate process, we counted on students and their faculty advisors and program faculty to really track themselves where students had completed the requirements for a certificate. This embedded certificate process, as we'll explain on the next slide, it helps just automatically identify students that are eligible. And a registrar's office no longer has to keep track of whether students filled out graduation applications for each certificate that they were receiving. The embedded certificates also contributes. Kentucky is a performance-based funding state in part, and several of the measures revolve around certificates to students from underrepresented populations, credentials awarded that align with one of 5 Kentucky targeted industry sectors, and credentials awarded that align with high wage, high demand occupations. So this embedded certificate process contributes to not only by way of not only recognizing student academic achievement, engaging students that may have become disconnected from Gateway, reducing workload, but then also contributes to appropriation figures for Gateway's performance-based funding. Next slide, Andreas. Right. The genesis of these reports, I should mention, Gateway is one of 16 community and technical colleges in Kentucky under the community and technical college system. All right. So really the genesis of these reports comes from a gentleman named Ernie Weaver, who at the time worked at one of our sibling community and technical colleges, shares us as 16 colleges openly share reports, tools that we've developed in the respective IR offices with each other. So that is really where this process started for us. Locally, what Gateway does each year is determine certificates that Gateway is eligible to award. This is available through DSS or Oracle DSS reporting system. And what we do each summer, each fall, is go through the list of certificates, determine any certificates that needed to be added or removed from our dashboard reports. And then when we get the catalog, what we do is we audit the course requirements attached to each of those certificates so that we're making changes as necessary. Faculty and registrar's office play a key part because part of that auditing process, which goes on really throughout the year, is when we find out course substitutions. For instance, the catalog might list one class subject number that is necessary to complete a certificate. The course substitutions come from the faculty and the registrar's office that say, we have determined that other class subject numbers also fit the competencies aligned with this certificate. So please incorporate those in. And we do that as part of the auditing process. Our office then runs reports by program at the close of each semester from, as I said, Oracle DSS, which accesses our student information system, PeopleSoft. What we have are dashboard reports for each program that lists each certificate with that program, provides us student names, classes that they had, the specific classes that they passed related to that certificate, where they've taken the class. Because as I said, Gateway is part of 16 colleges. So we do have some college residency requirements regarding the awarding of some certificates. Combine reports for all programs into a single spreadsheet, with each program having their own separate spreadsheet. And then we email these reports to Gateway's registrar's office, and they go through their formal academic auditing process. Andreas? Now I think we're taking a break for questions.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Steve. We are breaking for questions here. So if anyone has any questions for some of what Leanne was sharing earlier or for the work being done at Gateway, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to ask your questions. Also open the chat if you want to send a chat directly to our panelists. You can also do that. Amanda has a general question about the tool, and I think you can answer this, Leanne. Is anything required to use the tool, like data sharing? How do you provide it for free? I think that's a great question.
Great question, Amanda. And I think that once Bucky goes through the demo, we'll help explain this a little bit more. But we used some of our, our grant funding from Degrees When Due to develop and create this tool, which is available free and lives on our website. We didn't want to create anything that was going to require data sharing with us, that would require you or someone at an institution to download and install a new software, something that might need permission from IT that might get complex really quickly. So our tool instead just provides the templates and the instructions on how to use or employ or implement, let's say, each of these strategies at your own institution. So you could even have the tool up. If you have two monitors, you could have our tool up in one monitor, and then your platform or what you're working with in another monitor, and kind of go through them both at the same time.
Can you share a little bit more about the data sharing, Leanne, in terms of any data sharing that the tool asks for or IHEP is asking for?
So we would love to understand how institutions are using this tool and whether or not you're able to identify any earned unawarded credentials within your data. So we do have a survey, a short user experience survey that will provide valuable feedback for us and help us kind of iterate and think about what we might need to do or upgrade in our next version of the tool and what we can do to make it more useful for you. But then we also would love institutions to share aggregate numbers or data with us. If you were able to identify 20 or 2,000 or 200 earned unawarded credentials in your data through using this tool, there is a button that it's a link to a Qualtrics survey at the end of each of the strategies that we leave there as the option for you to complete the survey and share that aggregate data with IHEP.
Thanks, Leanne. So we'll shortly turn over to Bucky to give us a live demo of the tool. I did have one question here for Steve for their embedded certificate work. Was there any need to contact PeopleSoft when making those reports?
No, there wasn't. And really, it was a great benefit that Ernie Weaver, as I said, developed those reports initially, because he now, even though he no longer works for Elizabethtown Community and Technical College, he works for the Kentucky Community and Technical College Systems Office now. So he continues to be a resource to us when we run into snags regarding the reports and accessing data out of PeopleSoft. But we did not have to contact PeopleSoft. The connection to the student information system was already established and is already established through Systems Office, and the connection with DSS Oracle to PeopleSoft facilitated through Systems Office.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Steve. All right, so now we'll turn it over to Bucky to kind of show us how you access the tool itself and walk us through accessing the strategies, Bucky. And just as a reminder real quick, folks, if you have questions as Bucky's showing us, please feel free to add those questions in the Q&A. The chat is also open if you need to send questions directly to our panelists.
All right, wonderful. Well, first of all, let me begin by thanking IHEP for the opportunity to join the webinar and share this tool. I want to be very clear up front, though, that this tool is the product of incredible collaboration from so many people and institutions across the country. And so while I have the opportunity to share the work, before I do that, I want to make sure that that you sort of know that this is a incredible collaboration that really took to get this to work. So so with that, this online tool is really an opportunity to help institutions tackle what can be a pretty complex challenge. And this, with the challenge, can really bring some important and transformative benefits to the institution, and most importantly, for the people and the students who are served through this. So what I have up here is actually the page on the Degrees When Due website, so degreeswhendue.com. And you'll notice that there actually is a menu link called the Degree Mining Tool. So if you go to there, that's the way you'll find it. And up on this page, there's a little bit of information about the tool and a simple register for access. And so what this is you'll provide your email, and it will send you a link to be able to access the tool, as well as being able to access directly with that information. So it gives people a little bit of information about the tool generally. So once we've gone through that, this really is an individual tool that someone can use by themselves, or it can be used as a collaboration tool as you're building teamwork and teams across your institution. So as Leanne mentioned and showed a preview just a little bit earlier, this is the homepage of the tool. And essentially, there are a few things. I'm going to walk through the features of it. This will be kind of a technical demo, if you will. So we have on the homepage, we have the basic navigation, and I'm going to go into each of these areas here in just a moment. The essentials, the strategies, and a little bit about the tool. There are also 2 calls to action. So one, if someone is brand new, this is their first time here, it'll get help them get started. As well as if you already have an idea of which strategy you want to use and you just want to go back and take a look at the specific steps, that is an option there too. So before we dive into those, I want to kind of talk about the essentials piece. And one of the things we found when we were designing this tool and working with groups to do that was the importance of the basics, the foundations that are really key to making all of this work. And so what we've done is we've organized that into an essentials section here. And you'll see that this as a tool can be great for sharing amongst colleagues within your institution who this may be a new concept for them. And so it's a way for them to get started. And you'll see that we go through some simple information about what is degree mining, how to ensure that it is student-centered, a student-centered process there. We also actually included what I think is a really cool feature in this that we call a degree mining maturity model. And we found institutions and teams are at all levels of maturity when it comes to identifying earned, unawarded credentials. And so one of the things that we did to kind of help institutions take the next step in that maturity model is to actually build an embedded quiz. And so you may find these very familiar to something like social media quizzes and things like that. But essentially what we do is we ask a few simple questions. So ranging from capabilities to how they're awarding to the people involved. And so you'll see as we go through and we ask some of these questions, it will actually plot an institution out on the level of their maturity there. So and give a little bit of information about how that institution can take the next step in developing the work. So it's a really great opportunity for insights and for learning about how institutions can continue to grow in that regard. The other thing that's really interesting and great about this tool is that we've included a lot of checklists. We've tried to keep this very, very simple, very non-technical, if you will. And so there are ways that as teams are going through, they can check their work and guide their work using these simple checklists. And I'll show a number of those opportunities throughout. We also have a focus here on building the team. We found that to be a really key and critical skill. Obviously, the focus on equity is at the heart of this work, and you'll see that is talked about here. And then I'll share with this a little bit more here as we get into specific strategies, but we actually included a language, if you will, for talking about degree mining strategies. And one of the things that we found in working with the design group was that everyone talked about this work in slightly different ways. And so what we did is we applied visual communication techniques and collaborative technology techniques to really help people and institutions work well together when it comes to doing this work. Degree mining is a team sport. This is something that not one person does by themselves. It truly is, the success of it is bound by how effective that team works together. And this tool is based around that very concept. So as we go back to kind of the main homepage here, we of course have the strategies. I'm going to dive into that here in just a second. And we also have a brief section here about the tool itself. The reason I wanted to point this out is that this actually has some great language and wording around how to help share the word about degree mining, right? What is it designed to do? Of course, has contact with IHEP and degree mining. So it's a resource there to really promote the use of this work. So I wanted to share that as well. So as we go back here, we're ready to kind of dive into the heart of the tool, which is really the strategies. And these are the 6 strategies that Leanne talked about before. I thought I would add a little bit about how those strategies came to be. So as we were working with groups and talking with various groups and learning about this process, those 6 strategies were really the aggregate groups and approaches that institutions were taking. There are always variations. There are always ways that institutions might customize and adapt, but those were the 6 general approaches that institutions who are actually doing this work were finding to be successful. And we really worked to understand what the essential qualities of those were, and then how to present those in a way that shared that knowledge with a broader community. So what we have here is this is my first time here, and I know which strategy I want to use. I'm going to go ahead and dive into it's my first time here. So I hit the start. And again, this is an opportunity to customize how the tool displays information back. So what we do is ask some very simple questions about your current state as an institution as it relates to degree mining. So I'm going to go in here and just answer a few here. We'll say, will PeopleSoft, maybe we can automatically identify a single student's progress there, and we'll select this one. And so what we have here now is a dashboard that actually displays those 6 strategies, but it gives an indicator based on how relevant those strategies may be for your given institution based on the information you provided there. So you see here we have data management ranked as high using pivot tables and so forth based on the qualities that you provided there. I also want to point out just a couple of things on this page. So we can actually go to compare strategies, and it'll actually pull up that matrix. So if you want to look at them all and sort of see the detailed breakout of those, that's an option for you. We could also select customized recommendations, and it'll take you back to that quiz where you can put in some new assumptions based on the information on those quizzes there. So I'm going to dive into a few of these and kind of share with you. So as we look at these, I'm going to go into pivot tables, for example. So once I'm ready to do that, I hit the start button, and now I'm actually in a strategy, and this is a step-by-step guide of how to implement that strategy at an institution. So this is kind of the profile page. You'll see you'll get a little bit of information about the purpose and the goal, so you can quickly look at those. If you wanted to go back to the strategies, you could select the strategy button. It's going to take you back to the dashboard. You'll also see that in each of these strategies, we've included a short, what we call explainer video. It actually walks through the strategy, a diagram of how that works, and we narrate it, and we talk about the components that are involved. We also include what we call a strategy blueprint, and you'll see we'll walk through each component of this here in a moment. But what this blueprint does is actually take step by step the procedures that are needed to implement that particular strategy. We've also given you a blank one. So if you want to take this template and adapt it to your institution, you can print this off, you can use it digitally, but fill in the information that is relevant for your given situation there. So we provide those right up front. As we walk through each step, you'll see we actually break out that strategy map one by one, and we have an indicator over here to kind of show you. And we give a checklist for each of those items. This is what I was referring to a little earlier. And these are intended to be presented in simple guiding questions that are there to help your institution walk through the essential steps that are involved with this work. The other thing I want to point out here that is pretty cool is we're appropriate. We've embedded templates, and so you can actually go in and download a template. In this case, for the degree mining toolkit for the pivot tables, you can download that, and that's going to give you a starting point to begin able to implement that work. So the idea is that we give you enough to be able to customize and adapt, but not so much that you're having to undo something to put it to work at your institution relatively quickly. So again, we walk through each of these steps, and you can kind of use the checklist as a guide. And then this is what we were talking a little bit about before. This is not a requirement to use the tool, but as you use these strategies, being able to share and communicate the results that are produced from this are really important to be able to continue the development and refinement of these strategies. I want to point out that the work of degree mining broadly is still very young, right? It's a young technology field, it's a young process field, and the more that we can collectively learn as a community about this work, the more our students benefit from those practices. And so this is one aspect of that can help with that process. So once we've done that, we can actually select the view strategy dashboard, and there we are back at the dashboard to be able to talk about to share those items there. I do want to point out too that in particular within the custom degree mining template, as we go through here, just like we shared a template, there is also some work that's been done that may be useful for you. So we've actually linked to open source, in this case, a GitHub page where appropriate. And so you can actually go and connect you to open source resources that may be of use for that work. So anyway, those are the strategies that are there. Now, if you if you were to go here and you're coming back to the tool and you know which strategy you want to use, you could jump straight to that, and it'll take you just to the strategy page there for you to reference and use there. So this, as again, I would say that the degree mining tool is an incredible starting point. It's a way for your institutions to really dive into this work and do so in a confident way. There's still work to be done, right? There's still things that you as an institution and decisions that you as an institution will have to make. But the idea that this tool, the value proposition that this tool provides is time savings and really being able to get pointed in the right direction that's going to produce the most positive and impactful results for your institution. So with that, I will transition back over to Andreas, and we'd be happy to take any questions or thoughts about the tool. So.
Thanks so much, Bucky. Yeah, as Bucky mentioned, please ask any questions that you may have about the tool. One of the first questions we have here are there schools who already use degree audit software, specifically DegreeWorks, who also use this? Yeah, I mean, I'll have to jump in, and then Leanne, you may have some additional comments on this. So yes, there were a number of institutions that were involved in the development of this that were DegreeWorks institutions and contributed to understand what these processes were like. So they are very harmonious actually across DegreeWorks. The PeopleSoft and Colleague were really the three big enterprise their softwares. But as you can see with the pivot tables, we didn't stop there, right? So if your institution doesn't have that, there are still means to be able to carry this work out.
Great, Bucky. I think you answered it for us.
Another question is, are more strategies going to be added to the tool?
We think this is built this as a dynamic resource. So as we learn more, as we hear more from you, from other users, and discover more more solutions, we will work to see if we can create strategies for those solutions. You know, in a similar vein, we would love to continue to update the strategies that are already there and to refine them and to continue to provide concrete examples of these strategies in practice.
Absolutely, I would echo that. The inclusion of examples is really on the horizon. So as institutions adopt and adapt these practices to be able to share that work, that becomes very instructive for other institutions. The other thing that became very, very apparent early on with this work is that there, of course, is a technology layer. We all go to that, but there is a very big people layer to this, right? And so how teams come together, how teams and institutions support that work. And so the tool itself is designed to sort of be a connection point between the tech and the human side of this work.
Right. Thank you both. That actually kind of ties into this next question in, can we contact the institutions that use these specific strategies?
Meaning, as a user, can you contact one of the institutions directly that helped build the strategy? I think just send us an email and get in touch with us, degreemining@ihep.org. We will check that inbox. I think there are a lot of just considerations here. We want to be mindful of the kind of privacy of the institution, some of the institutions we worked with, although we're also happy to give credit where credit's due to all of our working group members who really helped lead to the development of this tool. So just send us a note. And if there's something specific that you'd like to know or a connection that you would appreciate, we will, be happy to try to facilitate that.
Yep. And I've added the email address into the chat for those that want to connect with us about that specifically. Another question we have here is, well, it starts, Steve, did you want to jump in on there?
No, I'll let Leanne know that, definitely at Gateway, in our office is a resource to anybody that thinks that we can be beneficial in your respective process.
Thanks, Steve. This seems like a great tool. Thank you. Can you speak more to how or why an institution that already has degree audit software would use this to complement what they are doing?
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Stephanie. I'll start and then turn it over to my colleagues. But a lot of institutions have some sort of degree audit software. It's just not fully functional. It's not able to do everything that they want it to do. They may have to only run one audit at a time. They might not be able to batch audit. They might not be able to do the implement the auto awarding process. And sometimes it just, might need to speed it up a little bit, and it might be more efficient to, step out of the student information system into using the business intelligence product, or even into using the pivot table to automate part of that process. So you can use, it should complement it might complement the degree auditing module.
Yeah,
Steve, Andres?
Yeah, the other thing I'd add too, and I know Steve's a race car fan, so I'll use an analogy here. It's sort of like having a race car but having no gasoline to go in it sometimes, right? So if you have a degree auditing platform, but you don't have data management practices first to make sure that the data going into it is accurate, that it's scribed appropriately according to the catalogs and things like that, you've got this great resource, but it's underutilized. And so this tool can actually be an incredible way of optimizing existing investments, but also being able to use those platforms that are already in place to be able to complement the work that is going on. So it also goes back to that maturity model approach, right? That wherever you're at in that maturity model, you're able to sort of take that stretch goal to the next level.
This really helped Gateway accelerate processes. Immediately prior to using these embedded certificate reports, we had started to, based on specific certificates identified, use Excel to draw information out of PeopleSoft to then do pivot tables on, grades, so on and so forth. Some of those processes would take as long for a single certificate, a day and a half. With these embedded certificate reports, we can run these reports for all programs in format the Excel spreadsheet, have it to registrar's office in about 3 hours. And Gateway offers over 100 certificates. So it accelerated our process greatly. And as Leanne said, it allowed us to more efficiently combine information in the student information system with the business intelligence tool that we use through DSS.
I'd also add that the templates that we provide to the tool on the human aspect is really beneficial in terms of how we think about writing down our process, and how there's often turnover in that space wherein there's one individual that knows how to run these reports and knows how to do it. And when that individual moves on, what happens with that knowledge? And so it's also a good way to kind of think about going through those strategies and really thinking about writing down how we go about developing those processes. We have another question. Does the awarding certificates have any negative effects whereby the student feels he or she has a certificate and does not feel the need to complete their degree? That's from John Wemple. Thanks, John.
Steve, do you want to take this one first as the practitioner?
It's certainly the case that we recognize that students have economic needs pressures, beyond or outside the classroom, outside the lab. To this point, we have not identified that awarding these certificates prematurely results in students exiting their programs prior to what they would consider their terminal credential any earlier than it was before we started using these embedded certificate reports. But it's certainly the case that, particularly as COVID brought out that, economic strains put on students. But our point is that if a student can realize in a tangible way their success, whether they need to take a break from academic studies or not, then at least they've got something that validates their efforts, their energy, and their investment of time.
I think likewise, or similarly, this isn't exactly the same. We're talking about associate's degrees, not certificates, but many of these same strategies can be used to also identify and award associate's degrees. And so if this is used in reverse transfer practices, or used possibly even at an institution that might be a 4-year institution that also awards associate's degrees. We've also learned through some of our research sponsored by Degrees When Due that students who are awarded their associate's degrees via reverse transfer are more likely to stay enrolled and complete their bachelor's degree. So I think it can be a real, all these tools can be a real benefit to students. And I think the bottom line is let's give students what they've earned.
Yep, very well said, Leanne. Thanks. Any last thoughts that we want to share about the degree mining tool before we close today's presentation? Great. So Bucky made a mention about our working group, and we want to give thanks to the members of our degree mining working group for their thought partnership and their input into our development of the tool itself. We worked with institutions from across the country, We also work with Alex Studios, which is where Bucky's from. We also work with an organization called Open Syllabus that really helped us kind of think through this initial process of what this tool would end up becoming. And we work with a number of our Degrees in Due coaches. We have a coaching model within Degrees in Due, and a number of our coaches were really instrumental in helping us think through this process. And some of the institutions, shout out to Steve for being here, sharing his experience with how Gateway was able to change their degree audit process, but also institutions like Sierra College, Shasta College, Yuba Community College, Northwestern Michigan College, and Oakland Community College for helping us with our degree mining group. With all that being said, again, this webinar is being recorded. It will be shared out with all of you. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Again, if you have any questions about degree mining or the degree mining tool itself, please give us send us an email at degreemining@ihep.org, and you can sign up for the degree mining tool now. It is live and active at degreesindue.com/degree-mining-tool. Thanks everyone again, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.